The air outside the boardroom felt heavier that day, even though the sky was clear. Adam Miller stood near the window of his 28th floor office. The city stretched beneath him like a kingdom he had conquered. Everything he touched turned to gold. His company, his name, his success. But deep down, he was haunted by the memory of one sentence that had destroyed everything gentle in him. "I'm not a fool." Those words had left his lips a year ago, cold and sharp, like the blade of pride cutting through love. He had said it to Emily, the woman who had once believed in him when no one else did. She had stood before him, trembling but brave, telling him she was carrying his child, and he had laughed it off, too blinded by logic and fear to see the truth. That night he poured himself another drink and told himself he'd done the right thing. Love was chaos, and he didn't do chaos. But every success since that day had felt emptier. Every victory sounded hollow. He told himself he had moved on, until fate decided to break the illusion. Because life has a cruel way of reminding us what we've lost, especially when we think we've buried it forever. It was a warm spring morning when everything he thought was forgotten returned to him. Adam had gone to the park to meet an investor, his mind fixed on numbers and schedules. But destiny had another plan. He stepped out of his car, phone pressed to his ear, when a soft laugh drifted through the air, a sound that made his heart pause. He turned instinctively, and there she was, Emily, sitting beneath a blooming cherry tree, sunlight dancing in her hair. For a moment he couldn't breathe. Time didn't move. But what froze him completely were the three little faces in her arms. Three tiny babies wrapped in pastel blankets, each with the same deep blue eyes he saw in the mirror every morning. His phone slipped from his hand, hitting the ground with a dull thud. The world fell silent. She looked up and saw him. Their eyes met, hers calm, his trembling. There was no hate in her gaze, no accusation, just quiet strength. That hurt more than anger ever could. Slowly she stood, adjusted the stroller, and whispered words that pierced through his heart. "Don't. You're not a fool, remember?" Then she walked away, leaving him frozen in a storm of regret he could no longer escape. That night, Adam didn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emily walking away, and those three tiny faces staring back at him. He sat in his office long after midnight, the city below flickering with light, yet everything inside him felt dark. For years he had believed control was strength, but now control was his prison. The more he tried to ignore what he'd seen, the louder the guilt grew. By morning, he was pacing the floor like a man who had lost something he didn't know how to find. He wanted to believe it was a coincidence, that those children couldn't be his. But deep down, he already knew the truth. He remembered the look in Emily's eyes the day she'd said she was expecting. It wasn't deceit, it was hope, and he had crushed it. Now, the thought of those little hands, those eyes mirroring his own, was breaking him in ways success never could mend. His heart whispered words his pride had long silenced. You were wrong. For the first time in his life, Adam wanted something money couldn't buy. Not power, not success, just forgiveness. And one more chance to hold what he once threw away. Days turned into restless nights, and Adam's thoughts refused to quiet. Every corner of his office reminded him of the emptiness he'd created. The same desk where he had once signed million-dollar deals now felt like a monument to everything he had lost. He couldn't focus on meetings, couldn't listen to his partners. Every time he saw his reflection in the glass, he saw those children's eyes staring back at him. One afternoon, he made a decision that even surprised himself. He left the office without telling anyone where he was going. His driver asked for directions, but Adam simply said, "Just drive." As the city blurred past, his memories replayed. The first time he met Emily, her laughter, her belief in him when no one else saw potential. He remembered the night he pushed her away and how cold the silence had felt afterward. When he finally stopped the car near the same park, the air was cool, filled with the sound of children playing. His heart raced as he scanned every face, hoping and fearing to see her again. He sat on the same bench where she had once been, and for the first time in his life, Adam Miller prayed, not for success, not for power, but for one more chance to make things right. The following week, Adam returned to the park every single day. He didn't know what he was searching for, only that he couldn't leave until he found her. Each day he sat on that same bench, hoping fate would give him one more glimpse. On the seventh day, just as the sun dipped below the skyline, he saw her again. Emily. She was walking slowly, pushing a double stroller while holding one child in her arms. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a strength that came only from pain overcome. Adam stood up, his breath caught in his chest. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she looked straight at him. No words, just silence heavy with memories. He took a few steps forward, his heart pounding like a drum. "Emily," he whispered, afraid that if he spoke louder she would disappear. She didn't smile. "Why are you here, Adam?" she asked softly. "To say I was wrong," he replied, his voice trembling. "I was blind, proud, and afraid." She shook her head. "You weren't afraid. You just didn't believe in love." Her words cut deep, but he didn't turn away. "Then let me believe now," he said. "Let me earn the right to know them." For the first time, she hesitated. The walls she built trembled. For a long moment, Emily said nothing. The only sound between them was the quiet coo of one of the babies in her arms. The wind carried the scent of blossoms through the air, brushing strands of hair across her face. Adam wanted to reach out, but he didn't dare. He had already broken too much. Finally, she sighed. "You can't fix what's already gone," she said, her voice trembling slightly though her eyes remained strong. "But you can choose what comes next." Her words struck him harder than any boardroom defeat. For the first time, he realized that forgiveness wasn't something he could demand. It was something he had to earn through time and truth. He knelt in front of her, not as a CEO, but as a man stripped of pride. "Then let me prove I've changed," he whispered. Emily looked down at her children, then back at him. There was hesitation, but also a glimmer of something softer. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she stepped aside and motioned toward the stroller. His heart raced as he looked at them, 3 tiny miracles, his reflection in each of their eyes. And in that moment, Adam understood. Love was never weakness. It was the only thing strong enough to rebuild what pride had destroyed.